This is Florida. Juan Ponce de Leon landed on these shores on Easter Sunday, 1513, in search of the legendary Fountain of Youth. Although he never found the fountain, he did discover a land of youthful exuberance. He claimed it for Spain and named it Florida in honor of the Easter Festival of Flowers. A paradise on earth, the state of Florida has a rich and colorful history and an abundance of fascinating things to see and do. Exotic wildlife, space launches, fun-filled theme parks, splendid museums, miles and miles of surf-washed beaches, and much, much more. Indeed, there's something here to entice everyone, and it's all bathed in glorious sunshine. Florida is a place where you can shake off your worries and enjoy life to the full. Steeped in the traditions of the Old South, semi-tropical northern Florida embodies the state's history more than any other region. Yet the atmosphere of its cities is surprisingly diverse. Tallahassee, the state capital, is a city of elegant old mansions surrounded by tall, shady trees. Pensacola is a typical naval city. Jacksonville is a thriving port, and historic St. Augustine is where it all began. It was on the feast day of St. Augustine in 1565 that Don Pedro Menendez sighted Florida's eastern shore. This is where he established the New World's first European settlement, 42 years before Jamestown and 55 years before the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth Rock. St. Augustine is the crown jewel of Florida's eastern coast. Arriving here is stepping back in time. Take a leisurely carriage tour for an introduction to the romance and history of this ancient city. Now you'll take a closer look at some of St. Augustine's historic buildings, starting with the 17th century Castillo de San Marcos, the oldest masonry fort in the United States. The 14-foot thick walls were built of coquina, a locally quarried shell rock, which actually swallowed cannonballs. In its 300-year history, the fort has never fallen victim to a siege.
Now, one of the things soldiers in these walls spent a lot of time practicing was how to properly fire one of these cannons.
Across the street is the authentically restored Spanish Quarter, a living history museum. Here you can stroll from house to house and observe the life in an 18th century colonial Spanish village. One block west, past the nation's oldest wooden schoolhouse, you can go even further back in time. At the Museum Theater, 2 films depict St. Augustine's early days. Over time, the hardships of the early settlers gave way to opulence, and by the 19th century, Florida had become a playground for the wealthy. The former Alcazar Hotel, built in 1888 by Henry Flagler, was purchased by Otto C. Leitner in 1945 to showcase his vast collection of antiques and artifacts. Now known as the Leitner Museum, the building displays Oriental art, fine-cut glass, a Victorian village, and natural history exhibits, as well as a charming collection of antique music machines. The former casino area and indoor swimming pool, one of the largest of its day, now houses an arcade of shops where antique lovers can browse away the hours. But other attractions beckon them. Across the Intracoastal Waterway lies Anastasia Island with its scenic state park. Here on the Atlantic shore, in the Cross and Sword Amphitheater, you'll experience St. Augustine's history in exciting live theater under the stars. Nearby is the St. Augustine Alligator Farm, where you can see alligators and crocodiles up close.
See, on the large alligators out in the main pen, you'll see a great big tongue down there. I'll show you all that tongue. There it is. You'll see that just a little bit better. Now you notice that tongue is attached from front to back. These animals can't wiggle it side to side, they can't stick it out. Therefore, they can't bite it off. They have a very good sense of taste, but actually more than taste.
Just south of St. Augustine, tucked between the Atlantic Ocean and Highway A1A, lies Marineland. Here you'll enjoy the performing dolphins, porpoises, seals, and other aquatic animals. Examine sea life at the oceanarium. See what it would be like to feed an electric eel or giant sea turtle as you rove the ocean floor. Then stroll through Whitney Park and see what the comical penguins are up to. And before you leave, examine the marvelous shell collection in Marineland's Shell Museum. Just north of St. Augustine, you'll find the city of Jacksonville. In striking contrast to quaint St. Augustine, this is a vital industrial and financial center, whose thriving downtown area is tempered by a pleasant river walk and the spectacular Friendship Fountain. Not to be missed is the Cummer Gallery of Art, with its outstanding collection of decorative and fine arts from ancient times to the present. Of particular interest are the Japanese Netsuke figures and the collection of early 18th century Meissen porcelain. Outside, the grounds are no less impressive, with a Florentine garden extending to the river. While in Jacksonville, visit the 300-year-old fishing village of Mayport. Here you can enjoy a fresh seafood dinner. But first, visit the Mayport Naval Station, the largest aircraft carrier base on the East Coast. On any weekend, you can take a guided tour of the base and one of the ships. Due west, at the base of Florida's Panhandle, the capital city of Tallahassee captures the charm of the Old South. The neoclassical Old Capitol building, built in 1845, has been restored to its original grandeur. State business now takes place in the new building, which towers behind it, and the Old Capitol offers interpretive exhibits depicting various periods of Florida history. Just 5 miles northeast of Tallahassee, on the rolling hills overlooking Lake Hall, you'll find the 308-acre Maclay State Gardens, the former estate and hunting grounds of Alfred B. Maclay. The gardens are ablaze with azaleas, camellias, oriental magnolias, and an abundance of other flowering trees and shrubs. Native plants complement the exotic flowers, with oaks and pines towering over the blossoming redbuds and dogwoods. The blooming begins in December, and every week brings a visual surprise as the flowering cycles continue. The handsomely restored Maclay house is furnished just as it was when the Maclay family lived here, and it's open to view from January through April. Lake Hall is an unspoiled habitat for freshwater fish, turtles, alligators, and migrating waterfowl. As you wander along the nature trail that skirts the wooded shoreline, you'll glimpse some of the many birds and animals that make their home in this lovely refuge. Deep in a cypress forest lies the Edward Ball Waukulla Springs State Park. Here the underground springs have the largest range of any in Florida. Beneath the springs, there are huge caverns where ancient mastodon bones have been found. You can hike or bike on the nature trails, and there's even an area for swimming. Take a boat tour among the cypress trees and look for colorful birds, turtles, alligators, and other creatures in their natural habitats. It's a nature lover's delight. In the western reaches of the Panhandle, the first Navy flyers were trained for combat in World War I at the U.S. Naval Air Station in Pensacola. As you drive around the base, you'll find Fort Barrancas, an original 19th century fort. Take a guided tour of the National Museum of Naval Aviation and examine the aircraft that played a vital role in our aviation history. Then see the Skylab command module and marvel at how far flying has come in less than a century. Central Florida is the playground of America. On both eastern and western shores, refreshing resort areas invite you to relax and enjoy the bracing sea air.
Here, the Eagle has landed.
On the Atlantic coast, you can also visit the dynamic core of America's space program.
That's one small step for man, one giant...
Between the shining seas, there are magical theme parks that are unequaled anywhere in the world. Here's a wholesome entertainment for the whole family, where you can have the time of your life in a world of fantasy and fun. You can also enjoy the lush beauty of a tranquil garden and see exotic animals in their native habitats. Our journey in Central Florida begins at Daytona Beach, famous for its firm sands that once supported automobile races. Today, you can drive along the beach at a leisurely 10 miles per hour, or take a stroll down the old boardwalk. But if 200 miles an hour is more your speed, plan a trip to the Daytona International Speedway. About an hour's drive south of Daytona Beach is the Kennedy Space Center. Activities available at Spaceport USA, the Visitor Center, reveal the past, present, and future of the United States space program. On a bus tour of the Kennedy Space Center, you'll experience a simulated launch countdown from the actual building where the Apollo astronauts trained. Inspect a Saturn V rocket that's longer than a football field and take a close look at the two launch pads where the Apollo moon missions began and where the space shuttles lift off. If you plan your trip carefully, you may be lucky enough to see an actual launch.
6, 5, 4. We've gone for main engine start.
Roger, roll.
Astronauts say The Dream is Alive movie, shown on the 5.5-story tall IMAX screen, really captures the feeling of being in space.
Now the engines have stopped. We are in space, 280 miles up. At last, we can see our magnificent Earth in all its splendor.
Outside the visitor center, enjoy a walk through space and time as you see the evolution of our space program in the rocket garden. To learn more about the brave Americans who have participated in the space program, visit the U.S. Astronaut Hall of Fame, just down the road from the Space Center. The self-guided tour recounts the early days of space exploration through photographs, motion pictures, and memorabilia. See Wally Schirra's Sigma 7 Mercury spacecraft and the spacesuit worn by Gus Grissom. Watch the emotion on John Glenn's face as he becomes the first American to orbit the Earth, and thrill to the voices of the astronauts coming to us from space.
This is Friendship 7. What is the reason for this? Do you have any reason? Over.
Heading northwest, scenic highways take you through Florida's thoroughbred country to the city of Ocala, where, among moss-draped oaks and stately southern homes, stands the Appleton Museum of Art, one of Florida's finest art museums containing more than 6,000 artworks and antiquities. Everyone who appreciates beauty will enjoy viewing the outstanding collections of Oriental art, sculpture, and fine antique clocks. Nearby is Florida's Silver Springs, the largest formation of clear artesian springs in the world. From a glass-bottomed boat, you'll see all kinds of underwater life through the sunlit, crystal-clear waters. Or take the Lost River tour on the Silver River. And in Deer Park, you can hand feed the animals.
Hey, Derek, how's it going? Pretty good, Justin. How you doing? All right. Okay, folks, so this is we're about to... Now, as I come up, on the right-hand side, you're going to get a good look at the Southeast Asia axis deer, also known as Bambi deer, because Walt Disney created Bambi.
The Jeep Safari is a four-wheel drive adventure through the jungles of the Wild Kingdom. You'll come face to face with alligators, deer, and many other wild creatures. On Florida's west coast, enjoy a little fantasy among the mermaids at Weeki Wachee. Watch the mermaids swim in a beautiful underwater ballet. Take time out to cruise the mermaid's magical river and view Florida as the Spanish explorers must have seen it nearly 500 years ago. Don't miss the Pelican Orphanage, where injured birds are nursed back to health. Colorful birds will perform for you, and large predators will display their power, speed, and beauty. Earning the nickname the City Beautiful, Orlando lies in the very heart of Florida. In 1965, an event occurred that would change the destiny and industry of Orlando. The decision by Walt Disney to convert 28,000 acres of swampland just southwest of the city into a land of fantasy and fun. In nearby Lake Buena Vista, Walt Disney World offers everything from shopping to golfing, from camping to the finest hotels. As you enter the Magic Kingdom, you'll stroll along turn-of-the-century Main Street, USA. Here you see a silent cinema, horse-drawn streetcars, and the railroad that takes you to the other lands. Catch a train at the Main Street station for a whimsical ride to Starland. In Tomorrowland, you'll board the Delta Dream Flight and explore the history of air travel from barnstorming to hypersonic flight. In Adventureland, you'll set sail with Pirates of the Caribbean. Float on a raft to Tom Sawyer's Island. And brush with wild animals on a jungle cruise. Visit Cinderella's castle, which rises in enchanting majesty in the midst of Fantasyland. Here you'll meet Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Then board Captain Nemo's Nautilus for a submarine voyage 20,000 leagues under the sea. You can also fly with Dumbo or join Peter Pan and Wendy as they glide through the skies of London. In Frontierland, catch the Big Thunder Mountain Railroad for a thrilling ride through Gold Rush country. Next stop, Liberty Square, where you'll visit the Hall of Presidents and hear the speeches that built a nation.
These are not our reliance against tyranny. Our reliance is in the love of liberty, which God has planted in us. Our defense is in the spirit which prizes liberty as the heritage of all.
Then visit a haunting mansion and visit the steamboat trips of a much younger America. Having visited the past, you can glimpse the future in Tomorrowland. You'll race through Space Mountain and take a futuristic journey on the Wedway People Mover. But even this couldn't prepare you for the next Disney experience, the incredible Epcot Center. Future World brings you face to face with the miracles of tomorrow, the wonders of life film, body wars. Let you speed through the human body in a race against bacterial invasion. Cranium Command shows you how a 12-year-old boy's brain works. And The Making of Me explains human reproduction. Next, rocket 18 stories high aboard Spaceship Earth for a magnificent view of our planet. And at the Universe of Energy, enter the ancient world of dinosaurs as you explore the sources of tomorrow's energy. At the World Showcase exhibit, you can tour the world in a single day. Each of the buildings lets you experience the essence of a nation in exciting sight and sound imagery.
Highlighting your vision will be a colorful boat ride along our view.
And when night falls, the World Showcase is ablaze with brilliant illuminations reflected in the shimmering lagoon. If you've always wanted to be a big-time studio director, or even a Hollywood extra, the Disney MGM Studios theme park is the place to be. Here's Hollywood at its heyday. You'll meet the stars, visit a studio backlot, and see how some of the great MGM movies were made.
Now this is a perfect example. Some of our props down here like to almost beat up looking truck. It looks pretty bad, but trust me, it runs great.
Learn about Disney animation and special effects. See Grauman's Chinese Theater, where immortal stars were honored in cement. Inside the great movie ride, you'll travel in theater-sized cars through the romance, laughter, and action of the best-loved Hollywood classics. Take a detour and catch the Indiana Jones epic stunt spectacular and thrill to the death-defying feats that are an everyday part of the movie-making adventure. For some comic relief, check out the Monster Sound Show.
Let's take a look at our film.
Hello?
Whoops.
If that's not enough, see the Superstar Television exhibit, where you can star in one of your favorite shows.
At Shea Stadium, the score tied after 9. Suddenly, the Mets explode, and with the bases loaded and 1 out, New York has to go to the bench for a pinch hitter. It's a pressure situation. The pitch, the swing, and it's out of here. A grand slam home run. The Mets win, and New York gave a well-deserved curtain call to their newest baseball heroes.
There's so much to see and do at Walt Disney World that a few days is never enough. So bring the family. Come for a week or even a month. It's the vacation of a lifetime. Nearby in suburban Winter Park, you'll find excitement of a different kind. Here, the Charles Hosmer Morris Museum of American Art exhibits a variety of paintings and decorative art, and includes some of the finest work of Louis Comfort Tiffany. Born in 1848, Tiffany was the first American to exert a worldwide influence in the arts. His work in stained glass, jewelry, and ceramics exemplifies the Art Nouveau movement. Many of these treasures are from Laurelton Hall, Tiffany's estate at Oyster Bay, Long Island, where he invited promising young artists to live and work. You'll enjoy the collection of windows by Frank Lloyd Wright, Louis Sullivan, and William Morris. American paintings by Samuel Morse, John Singer Sargent, and many others. Jewelry by such masters as Tiffany, Lalique, and Fabergé. And furniture that includes Tiffany pieces from Laurelton Hall, as well as the work of many other famous designers. Even the most accomplished designer could not improve on the magnificent killer whale. Here at SeaWorld in Orlando, killer whales, dolphins, and sea lions perform amazing feats. And experience the shark encounter, where you can walk along a moving sidewalk beneath huge tanks of sharks. There's still more movie magic in Orlando at Universal Studios, Florida. This is a real working studio where you can experience the thrill of being right there where the action is, as in lights, camera, action.
Rolling. We're at speed.
Enjoy the fun and adventure of being on the screen, behind the scenes with the director. There are more than 40 sets where you'll see full-scale recreations of some of the most famous scenes of all time. From the moment you approach the massive King Kong soundstage, you know you're in for a colossal experience of terror. You may have screamed at the movie, but nothing could prepare you for this confrontation with 6 tons of growling fury. Moving from sheer terror to sheer magic, your E.T. adventure gives you an intimate look at the world's favorite movie and its lovable star. Director Steven Spielberg has taken the magical way E.T. tugs at your heartstrings and turns it into an experience that puts you right into the picture. Experience this magic at Universal Studios, Florida. It's just a sampling of the many exciting adventures that await you there. Driving south from Orlando, you can reach Winter Haven in less than an hour for a visit to Florida's Cypress Gardens. Here, shaded walkways lead you through acres of gnarled old cypress trees, draped with Spanish moss and masses of flowering shrubs. Stroll through the beautiful gardens, each with a different theme. For a look at Florida's romantic past, visit Southern Crossroads, a replica of an antebellum town. And enjoy a bird's eye view of the gardens from a tropical island in the sky, rising 150 feet above the water. Watch the Great American Ski Show. And that's not all. There are many other diversions to thrill and excite you at Florida's Cypress Gardens. On the west coast of Central Florida, the twin cities of Tampa and St. Petersburg offer still more scenery and cultural attractions. In St. Petersburg, be sure to visit the Salvador Dali Museum, home of the world's most comprehensive collection of Dali's works. His surrealistic images will intrigue and astound you as you view hundreds of original oils, graphics, watercolors, and drawings. There are also sculptures, photographs, and extensive archives. This is a mecca for the serious art scholar and an unforgettable experience for anyone. It's not far from Tampa to the dark continent of Africa, only about 2 miles when you visit Busch Gardens. Take a monorail safari through the 60-acre Serengeti Plain, where you can watch the animals roam freely. Enjoy a quarter-mile of thrills on the Whitewater Congo River ride. You can view a dolphin show, ride on the exciting Scorpion coaster, and even visit Timbuktu. There's a Moroccan marketplace, tropical bird gardens, and much, much more. And don't forget to visit the Anheuser-Busch Brewery, with its hospitality house and the famous Budweiser Clydesdales. The beautiful city of Sarasota for many years has been the winter home of the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. John Ringling's fortune was well spent on his estate, modeled on a Venetian palace, and the museum he bequeathed to the people of Florida, the John and Mabel Ringling Museum of Art. Mr. and Mrs. Ringling were passionate art connoisseurs, and they acquired numerous European works by famous masters, primarily in the Italian Baroque style. You'll see wall-sized masterpieces by Rubens, among an art collection that's truly a national treasure. On the museum's grounds, visit the Oslo Theater building, then enjoy a display of circus memorabilia, which was assembled in John Ringling's honor. I came here to find myself. It is so easy to get lost in the world. This motto expresses the spirit of the Bok Tower Gardens in Lake Wales. This serene, lovely park was a gift to the American people from publisher Edward W. Bok in 1929. The Singing Carillon Tower rises amidst flowering plants in a beautiful garden, home to a great variety of wildlife. This is a place set apart from the pressures of everyday life, a sanctuary where nature is respected and everyone is welcome to come for spiritual refreshment and peace. Built of pink marble and native coquina stone, The exquisite tower houses the carillon instrument. This consists of 53 tuned bronze bells, ranging in size from just 17 pounds to over 12 tons. Carillon recitals are played every afternoon at 3 o'clock. Give yourself enough time to enjoy the beauty and tranquility of these gardens. Edward Bach created them to make the world a better place, and your visit is an experience to be cherished and long remembered. Lake Wales is also the winter home of the Black Hills Passion Play, which recounts the last 7 days in the life of Christ. Situated in the scenic highlands, the amphitheater is surrounded by fragrant orange groves. The Passion Play remains one of Europe's oldest traditions. Since 1939, it has been shown in South Dakota, and it is now shown here during February and March.
With mine own eyes I saw him healing a sick man. Then, on the Sabbath, he ordered him to take home his bed.
Continuing farther south, visit the Highlands Hammock State Park. Thousands of acres of virgin hardwood forest called hammocks. A guided tram tour gives you a chance to see the wildlife in remote areas of the park. Or, if you'd rather hike, 8 nature trails lead you through fern gardens, orange groves, and the ancient forested hammock. There's a subtle change in the air when you enter southern Florida. While the northern and central regions are semi-tropical, southern Florida is tropical. This climate suggests an easier, slower-paced lifestyle, allowing plenty of time to smell the flowers, of which there is a glorious abundance. The southern part of the state is chosen by the most northerners as their second or their retirement home. These newcomers, along with immigrants from Mexico and the Caribbean, make southern Florida the fastest growing area in the state. Here you can visit America's Riviera with some of the most delightful beach resorts in the world, journey along an ocean highway to the far reaches of Florida's Keys, and roam the exotic, mysterious world of the Everglades. Palm Beach is on southern Florida's Atlantic coast, just north of Miami and Fort Lauderdale. This quiet, fashionable resort, established in the late 19th century, has kept most of its original charm. The town was originally frequented by wealthy industrialists, as you'll realize when you visit the historic Whitehall Mansion, the former home of Henry Morrison Flagler, and now known as the Henry Morrison Flagler Museum. Flagler became interested in Florida in the 1880s, and by the time of his death in 1913, he had developed the entire east coast of the state and built a railroad from Jacksonville to Key West. A gift from Flagler to his new bride, the Whitehall Mansion was completed in 1902. Since 1960, it has housed the Flagler Museum, and under the guided hand of Flagler's granddaughter, has been restored to its former elegance. The main rooms are decorated in historic European styles. While strolling the grounds, visit the fully restored Rambler Railroad car, which was built in 1886 for Flagler's personal use. Leaving Palm Beach and traveling south, we reach Fort Lauderdale, known as the Venice of America. It's a city of inland waterways where boats seem to rival cars as a means of getting around. Miles of lagoons, canals, rivers, and beaches make this one of the most popular areas in Florida. Upon reaching Miami and its front yard, Miami Beach, take time to examine the Art Deco architecture that symbolizes this ultimate snowbird resort. The pastel colors of the resplendent beachfront hotels are part of the culture of Miami Beach. Today, the culture of the Miami area is changing with the dramatic influence of its Cuban population. Across Biscayne Bay, in the city of Miami, be sure to visit the Metro Dade Cultural Center. The main library holds about 1.5 million books. At the Center for the Fine Arts, you can see works by international artists and possibly catch a major traveling exhibition. And at the Historical Museum of Southern Florida, you'll learn about Miami's rich history through artifacts, audiovisual displays, and a variety of other media. Another must is a visit to Vizcaya, an Italian Renaissance villa surrounded by 10 acres of gardens. Once the home of industrialist James Deering, the villa has more than 70 rooms, lavishly furnished with European treasures. French and Italian sculptures adorn the extensive formal gardens. In the garden for the blind, you can touch and smell the fragrant flowers and herbs. On the edge of Biscayne Bay, this unusual sculpture barge creates an area of calm water, an ideal place for quiet reflection. More natural beauty awaits you at the Parrot Jungle and Gardens. For more than 50 years, this park has been a preserve for exotic birds, which fly free among the lush tropical foliage. Other native wildlife is quite at home among the tall oaks and cypresses, the profusion of flowers. Performing parrots, macaws, and cockatoos put on a show every day in the Parrot Bowl Theater. Some of the birds will pose with you, and the children will enjoy the petting zoo and playground. As you've seen, the most interesting way to observe animals is in their natural habitats. At the Miami Metro Zoo, there are no cages, and the animals are free to roam in areas that simulate their native homes. Metro Zoo is arranged by geographic region, so your visit is like a zoological trip around the world. Your monorail tour takes you through Wings of Asia, a huge aviary where more than 300 exotic birds fly free. And observe elephants, rhinos, and lions roaming in the Asian forest plain. Asian small-clawed otters are the stars of the Asian river life area. In the Eurasian steppes and the European forest, you'll encounter bears, antelopes, and storks. You'll see the great apes of the African jungle and the elephants, giraffes, zebras, and gazelles that are native to the African plains. Eventually, you'll arrive down under, where you'll observe koalas, kangaroos, and wallabies among the eucalyptus trees. Beyond Miami, the Florida Keys stretch for 180 miles into the ocean. Between the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico, the overseas highway connects the islands, replacing the railroad built by Flagler. Many famous people have wintered in the Keys. They come for the fishing, the climate, the ocean, and perhaps the isolation. Hemingway had a home on Key West, as did John James Audubon and President Harry S. Truman. If you enjoy fishing or snorkeling, you'll find abundant opportunities during your visit to the Keys. Key West is famous for its sunsets, and any evening you can join an assortment of street vendors and entertainers who gather at Mallory Pier to enjoy the spectacle. Key West tours give an overview of the city. Take the Conch Tour Train for a 14-mile ride to points of interest in Old and New Key West. Or tour the island on the Old Town Trolley for a narrated trip. Returning to the mainland, we find that the best place to observe native animals is, of course, the vast Everglades National Park at the southernmost tip of Florida. Some 7,000 square miles of pristine land invite you to camp, canoe, fish, and view the wildlife. The mangrove swamps, the forests of cypress and pine, the coastal wetlands, and the vast glades of grass are all part of the fragile ecosystem that's carefully protected and preserved. Alligators, turtles, otters, manatees, cougars, pelicans, blue herons, bald eagles, and many other creatures make their homes here. The Everglades are, in fact, a giant underground river up to 50 miles wide and from 1 to 20 feet deep. There are hiking trails throughout the Everglades, but if you'd rather ride, take the Shark Valley Tram Tour, a guided 2-hour excursion of the Sawgrass Wilderness, with a stop at the observation tower. Your open-air tram will allow fine sightings of alligators and other rare creatures and birds. In Naples, the Palm Beach of Florida's west coast, visit the Collier Automotive Museum, an impressive collection of racing and luxury automobiles, some of which date back to the early days of the century. Here's Gary Cooper's Duesenberg, one of only 2 in existence. The other belonged to Clark Gable. Each car is maintained with devoted care and taken out periodically for exercise. As well as providing a fine home for these national treasures, the museum gives you an overview of the history of the automobile. There's only one Fort Myers, and 90 million Americans are going to find it out, said Thomas Edison when he chose this location for his 14-acre winter estate. Edison's house has a breezeway and many verandas, which allowed him to enjoy the tropical climate that had attracted him to this part of Florida. The most fascinating part of the estate is the museum, which showcases the world's finest collection of Edison's original inventions. Edison's creative genius is also visible in the chemical library, where Edison pioneered the modern rubber industry. Today, the laboratory remains exactly as he left it. The gardens of the Edison home are extraordinary. Edison was a devoted horticulturist, and he cultivated more than 1,000 varieties of plants from around the world. Just outside the laboratory stands this banyan tree, which was only 2 feet in diameter in 1925 when Harvey Firestone brought it from India and gave it to Edison. In keeping with the slow-paced atmosphere of southern Florida is the relaxed lifestyle of Sanibel, an island paradise where native Floridians go for their vacations. Possibly the most strenuous activity here is shell collecting along the unspoiled sandy beaches. This barrier island is famous for its glorious sunsets, lush vegetation, and profuse bird life, as well as the abundance of shells washed in by each tide. It seems as though the state of Florida was created for our recreation and pleasure, our relaxation and refreshment. We hope this brief tour has inspired you to plan your own Florida adventure. After all, the best journey is the one you take yourself. To make your trip as enjoyable as possible, plan ahead and be sure to consult your AAA office for current and detailed information on travel routes, accommodations, restaurants, and the attractions you wish to visit. When you visit this land of endless sunshine, of sparkling seas, lush foliage and flowers. You'll understand why Ponce de Leon named it Florida, and you'll realize that the fountain of youth is here after all.